Is the most memorable conflict you've had with someone? Not long after I graduated from college, I was taking a bus to work one rainy morning. The bus was packed, and as soon as I boarded, I was squeezed tightly among the crowd. With no room to move, I stood there playing on my phone. As I got absorbed in an ebook, a woman suddenly grabbed my hand and started yelling at me. For a moment, I was stunned. The passengers around us were staring, and the woman was practically spitting as she accused me of inappropriately touching her chest in the crowd, calling me a pervert. The people around me looked at me with disdain, anger, and even amusement. Some men even pointed at me, demanding that I get off the bus. My mind raced. I thought of a dozen ways to explain myself. I could say that one of my hands was holding onto the bus's overhead strap and the other was holding my phone. So how could I have touched her? I could point out that the woman looked to be in her 40s, with a face full of freckles like a concrete wall. I definitely wasn't interested in her. I could also point out that there were other male passengers around her, so maybe they should think twice before accusing me. But then I realized, would anyone watching this scene even care about the truth? No, they wouldn't. So, instead of defending myself, I yanked my hand away from the woman's grip and shouted even louder than she had. "You're the thief here, and you're turning it around on me. You just tried to put your hand in my bag, and now you're accusing me of being a pervert after I pushed you away." The woman was taken aback by my response, her face turning red as she angrily retorted, "You're lying." I shot back, "And you're calling me a pervert? Everyone should check their bags and wallets. Driver, don't stop the bus. Head straight to the police station." The moment I said that, the same passengers who had been judging me now scrambled to check their bags and wallets. They began murmuring among themselves, pointing fingers at the woman. In the cramped space, people moved away from her. Clearly, she didn't have the nerve to handle the situation and started insisting that she hadn't stolen anything, even explaining where she worked to try and clear her name. But this only made her look guiltier in the eyes of the other passengers. When the bus stopped at the next station, she quickly got off, looking embarrassed. Of course, I knew she wasn't actually a thief. I had deliberately turned the accusation back on her, but I didn't feel guilty because I hadn't touched her chest. She had falsely accused me first. One of my university professors, Mr. Zhang, had taught me this tactic. He always seemed carefree and unrestrained, often doing things that crossed the line but never getting into trouble for it. I remember once after class, a group of us boys were playing cards in the classroom. Mr. Zhang quietly watched for a while before he couldn't resist and shoved one of us aside to take over, saying, "Your card playing is terrible. Let me show you how it's done." That's how we discovered he was also a card enthusiast. One time, while playing mahjong off campus, he sat there like a street thug, smoking and chewing betel nuts while imparting his 4 life principles to us. Don't chase true love from prostitutes. Don't sacrifice yourself for slogans. Play dumb around your boss. And always muddy the waters when things go wrong. He told us, "Most of the stuff I teach you in class, less than 1% will be useful in life. But if you learn these 4 rules, you'll benefit endlessly." Later, there was a scandal at our school where Mr. Zhang's competitor was accused of academic fraud. It was said that the competitor had used ghostwriters for many of his papers. Clearly, Mr. Zhang's rival had set him up, but Mr. Zhang wasn't fazed. Instead, he wrote a report accusing the other teacher of accepting bribes from students and having inappropriate relationships with female students. He even suggested the teacher was planning to leave the school and had been cozying up to administrators at other institutions. This caused a massive uproar, and the school launched an investigation into the teacher, who eventually took a long leave of absence. Naturally, Mr. Zhang ended up getting the promotion. When we asked him if the allegations were true, Mr. Zhang admitted, red-faced, that as far as he knew, they weren't. We were shocked and asked, "Aren't you afraid he'll retaliate?" Mr. Zhang shrugged and said, "It doesn't matter. My papers weren't ghostwritten either. He wasn't clean to begin with, so he couldn't withstand scrutiny." The school administrators don't care about the truth. They just want to protect their own positions and resolve issues quickly. Whoever looks like the bigger problem is who they'll deal with. To be honest, I don't particularly like these underhanded tactics, but I have to admit, after entering the real world, these strategies have been incredibly useful. For a time, I lived in a dirty, chaotic neighborhood. The guys in the apartment above mine would blast loud music every night, keeping the neighbors awake. When I confronted them, they acted tough, telling me to move out if I didn't like it. The next day, their window was smashed. They suspected it was me and even called the police. When the officers questioned me, I calmly denied it, pointing out that I wasn't the only neighbor upset by their noise. I also mentioned seeing needle syringes in their trash and suggested they might be involved in drug use or illicit activities. The officers' attitudes immediately changed, and they called for backup to search the apartment. A few days later, the troublemakers moved out. Whether they were actually using drugs, I don't know, but they clearly had something to hide, so they relocated. Another time, I took my phone in for repairs, and the technician quoted me $150. But after the repairs were done, he demanded $300. I didn't argue, just paid the money and left. Later, I returned to his shop, sat outside smoking, and warned passersby that the shop sold faulty phone parts. The technician came out furious, yelling that I was lying. As a crowd gathered, I calmly insisted that his parts had exploded. Eventually, the mall manager intervened, and the technician refunded my money, apologizing profusely. This world is full of toxic people. When they latch onto you, reasoning with them is useless. You have to outdo them in shamelessness to protect yourself. As a child, I once tried to reason with some bullies by quoting our teacher's lesson about mutual respect and kindness. They laughed and beat me up instead. The next time they picked on someone, I picked up a brick and smashed it over the leader's head. He collapsed in tears, and when the teacher arrived, no one dared speak up, not even the bullies. That's when I realized that being kind alone isn't enough. It's useless. You need to be a kind person who also knows how to defend yourself with force when necessary. Only then will your kindness truly be valued and protected.